Are you all ready?
I think so, Dennis. Yep.
So I'll just make a brief statement, then I'm happy to do one-on-ones with you as you wish. So my name is Dennis Pate, Dennis Pate. I'm the zoo director here at Omaha. And very good news to report that the Fish and Wildlife Service has issued a permit to import up to 18 elephants from Swaziland. This has been a long time in the making. The permit was submitted November of 14, and following a very, very thorough review, including an environmental assessment, they feel like our request has met all the requirements under the Endangered Species Act and the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, and have approved the permit.
So what does that mean for the zoo?
It's one of these, what it means for the zoo is there's some rare times when lots of good things come out of this. Number one, we save elephants from being culled in Swaziland. Number two, we get to help rhinos at the same time. And number three, we strengthen the genetic pool of elephants in North America and make them more sustainable. So we're very, very happy about being able to do all three of those things. And of course, the fourth thing is people in Omaha get to see live elephants, be inspired by them, hopefully take action because they're here.
This wasn't just the Omaha Zoo on its own. You guys partnered with people, didn't you?
We have two other partners, Dallas Zoo and Sedgwick County Zoo in Wichita, Kansas, have all joined together to effect this import.
So how many is the Omaha going to actually get?
Well, we have yet to determine that. One of the reasons that we have transferred them from the park to Oboma is to be able to evaluate them to make sure that right when we're ready to do it, that everybody's healthy. If some are not, then we're not going to take them. And so we're reserving judgment on that until we make that final determination about who can travel and who can't.
In an ideal world, is it a 6-6-6 split?
It's an even split in an ideal world. Yes.
How do you transport the elephants from Africa all the way to Omaha?
It's a long way. It's been done before many times. We are going to do it in the most expedient way that we can to minimize the discomfort the elephants may feel. And so that started last July when we transferred into the boma to get them used to being around people, to get them used to being in 1-acre paddocks in closer confinement, and to get them used to diets. And so we will be flying them here on a 747 plane that's a freighter. The maximum it can take is up to 18 animals.
What kind of process went into preparing the zoo for the elephants?
Well, that process has been going on for 2.5 years, and that's building a brand new exhibit that will allow us to exhibit and keep elephants in social groups, both inside and outside. So our total elephant complex is pretty close to 5 acres. It's by far bigger than anything we've done before. It'll be one of the largest in the U.S. zoo. Our indoor quarters is the largest in a zoo, the herd room. And so we've taken new steps. We've looked at a lot of the literature to make sure that we build environments that are enriching for the elephants, that allow them to maintain nice social groups, and for them to be able to exercise and travel both inside and especially outside. So our exhibit is long and narrow with devices, time devices that will help us move them all around the exhibit and reach up for hay in order to see that they get the proper exercise.
It's been a while since the zoo's had any elephants of their own. Has this been something you guys have been working towards?
It has, although it really started in 2012. So we've been working that long and identifying potential partners, understanding what went before us in terms of the elephant import that happened in 2003, and then finding out whether or not there are other opportunities in the U.S. and Europe and elsewhere to acquire elephants. So there's a lot of homework that went into all this before we got word that Swaziland was looking to thin their herd to make more room for rhinos and match the elephants with the space available to keep them.
Have you found any other elephants, or is this kind of the end of the first wave of elephants coming into this first exhibit?
I'm not sure what you're
Have
asking.
you found any elephants from anywhere else
No.
that would be coming into this exhibit?
No,
Okay.
no.
Do you plan on trying to get any more? I mean, is the exhibit large enough to hold more? Or are you just gonna, if you get 6, be happy and be done?
There might be room for one more or two more, but we'd like to save some space for breeding and rearing offspring, and so we can have a social unit with mothers and their kids together. And at some point, sure, we're going to have too many elephants, and then we'll look for other zoos, probably once, long after the youngster is weaned from its mom, and we may do something, consider something like sending the mother and offspring out to another zoo rather than just the offspring.
You touched on it in your opening comments, but we've received a couple of emails in the newsroom from various espousing the animal rights organizations, saying the elephants should be left in the wild and not brought here. Talk about the reasons for bringing them here.
These animals are in 2 game parks in Swaziland. Keep in mind, in Swaziland, as of the 1940s, there were no elephants in that country. They had all been hunted out. And so they were able to acquire some from Kruger National Park that were surplus to Kruger National Park in order to start some breeding groups of elephants. The elephants did extremely well. In fact, they probably did too well, because what's happening now is, and it's compounded by a drought that's there, is they are destroying the vegetation, changing the ecology of the places they exist in the parks. And so they knew they had to do something, and they were planning on culling them. We got word of that, and were able to step in, work with them in order to see if we might be able to import them rather than see them culled.
Put culling in English for people so they understand exactly what that
Cull is management euthanasia.
So the park was going to thin the herd.
Pardon me?
The park was going to thin the herd.
Yes. Yes. Not unlike what we do here with deer. We see how many the environment can sustain. Fish and Game says, you know, we'll allow this many to be hunted, and that's that. And so it's to bring animal populations in concert with the space for them. Unfortunately, you know, if this were wild Africa the way it used to be 100 years ago, where there was a drought in one place, they would simply migrate to another place. They can't do that anymore because of human habitation and fence boundaries, ranches, all of that prevent that now. And so in many of the national parks that you go to, sometimes water is provided. Sometimes fences are put up to prevent poaching. In Swaziland, they have around-the-clock armed guards to prevent poaching. So there's some degree of management going on in almost every national park, mostly to protect the animals.
How much do all these elephants cost, and who gets the money, and who's paying the money?
We're not buying the elephants. What we are doing is transferring money to Swaziland to a trust that's placed in trust to support rhino conservation. And so as they move forward on rhino conservation activities and give us an annual report, after reviewing that report, we will release additional dollars for them to use to continue that research. Lately, we've been using it simply to feed the rhinos. So they've had an urgent request of us if they could start using it to feed the rhinos. And we made this obligation whether we got elephants or not. And so we said, by all means, because they're losing some rhinos now just because there's not enough food for them. And so we've allowed them to use some funds to import hay in order to be able to feed the rhinos.
So you're not actually buying these?
No.
When did you make that commitment to the rhinos, and when did you get the offer to have the elephants?
We made that commitment to rhinos probably in the spring of 2014, before the permit was even submitted. Following our first visit there and understanding what was going on, what they were trying to do, and to restore some of the natural history heritage to Swaziland. And they had great success with rhinos. They were able to protect them, and we wanted to build on that, and they wanted to build on that.
Visit to Swaziland, and this whole
No, it did. The initial conversations were about, do you have elephants? Are you willing to consider an import in the United States? But the more we learned about that, and as we were contemplating all that, us and them, we learned about everything else they were doing, especially rhino conservation.
Can you understand my slight skepticism at this does sound like you're buying the elephants? You're
Sure.
just categorizing it slightly differently?
I understand what you're saying, but that's not what we're doing. That's not what we're doing.
Thank you. So what's the timeline of getting the elephants here?
There's a lot of logistics associated, as you might guess, with bringing elephants here. And so it's 747s, it's specialized cranes, trucks, loaders, all of that sort of thing. And so we imagine right now that it's going to take 3 to 4 weeks from the time we get the green light to pull all that together. Obviously, we've been working on it, but it's not easy. Swaziland does not have a lot of this sort of equipment, so we've got to bring it in from South Africa.
What target? 6 months, 9 months?
Oh, I would imagine within the next 2 to 3 months.
And then after they get here, how long until they're displayed for the public to come take a look?
Several weeks, 2 to 3, 4 weeks, something like that. Depends on how they settle in. Since they've been in these bomas for quite some time already, we expect they're going to be pretty used to people. They've got to get used to a new type of hay, grains, used to being inside, transferring through doors so we can take really good care of them. We want them to settle in really nicely first, get to know the staff that are caring for them. So it's, there's no set time, it's just an evaluation of how they're doing.
Is there any risks involved with bringing elephants from the wild into this captivity?
There are, but we've tried to minimize those by bringing them into the bomas early and evaluating them.
And so the governments of these African countries don't necessarily have the best track records in terms of doing things the right way. How do you know the money that you're giving for the rhinos is actually going to the rhinos and their conservation onto the pocket of some corrupt government official?
First of all, the money for rhino conservation is not going to a government. It's going into an independent, nonprofit organization called Big Game Parks. And they have set up a trust in order to handle money like this that was set up actually more than 10 years ago to receive funds like this. And so the funds are placed there. And again, there are annual reports that are giving on, that demonstrate the progress they're making and a request for a release of funds.
And is this all private money from the Henry Dorley Zoo?
Yes. Other questions?
Probably do it.
Okay.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome. You're welcome.